Man, this comic book sucks! And the reviews online said it was good! I wasted my money! Why didn't somebody tell me?
Hey everybody, we were requested by our great viewer, Randy. I don't know the number, I think it's 21785. Hopefully I'm right, please apologize if I'm wrong, but he wanted us to do this. I did not want to do Avengers Forever. I was a Avengers reader, a fan of Kurt Busiek's Avengers way back in, what was it, 2000 when I think he started, maybe it was 1999.
Yeah, it was around that time.
So that, you know,
earlier. A
little bit earlier, yeah. But Heroes Return has happened.
Yes, that's about 90, that's like around 97, 98.
No, that's more 98, I think. That had to be as early as it can go. But what's the name? Well, actually, Perez was the guy they were holding, and they were keeping him in the pocket at Marvel to do the Avengers. And as time went on, Perez was like, there's too much continuity for me to sort of start this book over. If you get a writer, I would definitely, I'm sticking with drawing and you can count on me. Don't worry about me missing anything. And they got, you know, from Marvel's fame, Kurt Busiek to write it. And he's a longtime Avengers fan, longtime Iron Man fan. So he started Heroes Return, and Avengers was now once again a hit. So it was a hit book. So then of course you're gonna capitalize on the hit.
Here it comes.
And then he brought back Avengers Forever. Now this, to me, it didn't start as strong as I thought it would, but they already had Carlos Pacheco. They already had him, and he wanted to do Avengers. He's a big Avengers fan. I think he did Avengers Squadron Supreme. I think they did a one issue of that. So they had him doing that. So they're like, let's get him on something else. He's hot. He's done the X-Men. You know, he wants to do Avengers stuff. Let's get him to do something. So they had Kurt Busiek. Obviously has a wealth of stories. He's ready to do another thing. So he's like, I want to do my own Avengers Kang Immortus thing. So we get Avengers Forever. We get Carlos Pacheco, and for me, I'm like, this is going to be a solid book. There's nothing wrong with this. And then I think the choice of characters that he put in the book were, because they're plucked from the Kree Skull War. So Kurt Busiek is a continuity guy.
Well, they were plucked from different time periods altogether, if I remember.
Yeah, but if you remember in
because Captain Marvel is in the book.
Yes.
And this is Captain Marvel's son, Genis. So
yes,
I remember like this is. Yeah, because he has both Giant Man and Yellow Jacket, so
which is kind of.
So those two times he's at those times. They plucked them from those time periods, if I remember correctly. And he's doing a magnificent like a Magnificent Seven sort of thing with these characters. Where I'm taking these guys, and these have to be. Of course, you're gonna have Captain America, but these will be the best. These will be the best guys for this particular problem. With like your bench player who's going to be Rick Jones, who was paralyzed at the time, but was able to do what he needed to do. In this story, this was go ahead.
I'm saying it just only been the choice. If you look at Kree Skull War, he picked characters from one period, and then now for the writer saying I want more conflict, I'm picking the pieces that I feel will add more conflict. Having Yellow Jacket, who supposedly thinks that he took out Giant Man, having this disillusioned Captain America, and then having, just some of those elements so you have this conflict, and then say, oh, Songbird, she was a villain. Now she's not a villain in this story. So the Wasp was like, I'm kind of suspect on her. So as a writer, I mean, you want to have something maximum conflict. I think for me, you want sort of the classic characters if you're having a big Kang Immortus. But it was my only reservation starting off. So for me, it started off good. Only things for me, the art was it was big splash pages, a lot of artwork, but then it was like kind of hard to always figure out the pages since it's so cluttered. But as you were saying.
No, I didn't get that from Pacheco in terms of cluttered art, but him and Phil Jimenez are both students at whether they were heavily influenced or they went to his house. Obviously you can see the influence from George Perez in their artwork without any doubt. I came into it again, along the same lines, because I was really enjoying Kurt Busiek's run on Avengers. I wasn't even in the States at the time, and I was having the book shipped out to me. I was getting every Marvel comic they were producing at the time, and that was a really good period for Marvel comics.
Every one of them?
Every single book.
X-Men too, though. You were getting X-Men?
Every single book that Marvel produced,
Wow.
they were shipping them over to me. I had made a nice arrangement. So, and I was reading everything, because some days I was just totally bored. So I was reading everything at that time. And here's how I did it, because I had so many comics. I left the ones when I was coming back to the States. Everything that I didn't like, I left. And then the other ones, like I kept the entire Kurt Busiek, comic run. I didn't take back clothing when I came back. I took back comic books.
Lord.
Yeah. So I kept the Kurt Busiek Avengers run, which to this day still holds up. And remember, he was on Iron Man at the time too, and that run doesn't hold up, not at all. Okay. There was just it really boggles my mind how he was able to get so far with the Avengers run, and the Iron Man run was just, I don't know what happened. It just never really solidified.
Well, I want to just, before we go off of that, it's funny because being the success he was at that period, he pointed out, he was like, he says, like, I wanted to get Iron Man. They gave it to Byrne. They gave it to Len, who, I forget, Comiskey or something like that. And there was one other person that got it before him. And he's like, now I finally got it. And it was, you see why he didn't get Iron Man. it was. I mean, it's his favorite character, but I think he brought back too much of the old. But
well, there was these plot problems because Iron Man was a kid, and then they had this two-parter that was supposed to come out and explain stuff. It dragged for the longest period of time. When it came out, it was pretty much irrelevant. The Iron Age, but the run on Avengers, was really good. And then you had the Perez artwork over there, so it was just a really fun read. So of course Avengers Forever comes out, he's on it. And I enjoyed it from start to finish simply because of the storytelling. The art for me, to be quite honest, and Pacheco's a great artist, okay? I really enjoyed the stuff he did on Superman because I was introduced to him here on Avengers Forever. But the storyline, see, this was an incredibly big story because he was trying to tackle, not only just tried to tackle the bits of the story, because you got Kang. Once you got Kang, you've got time travel. Okay. Once you got Kang, you're going to see Immortus. Once you see Immortus, you'll probably see Doctor Doom. There's a whole bunch of people that you're going to probably get to see at this point. So I really appreciated the fact that unabashedly he was going to take this particular thing head on. So I was like, okay, let me do this. Then you had Rick Jones as your everyman to say, okay, he's going to be the guy that you can relate to. Who can't relate to Rick Jones? The characters he plucks, from time or from whatever periods, I thought made this, the magnificent, with the exception of maybe Songbird, who I really didn't care about, okay? But Songbird is what, she's really supposed to be like Screaming Mimi, and then she became like the hero with the, the Thunderbolts?
Yeah, that's crazy that Screaming Mimi has this power that's now sort of a photonic sound light thing. I'm not sure what
she can fly.
It's weird. It's like she's
things
basically
that happen when you become a hero, right?
She's like Green Lantern now.
But the mixture, the characters he chose, and of course putting Captain America in there was definitely a plus. The way that he managed to actually, and it's a big story, so I enjoy big stories, especially when they hit off. I was looking at, I was at first issue all the way through, and the amount that this guy did to make certain that the history was not run away from, wasn't shied away from, to try to be as inclusive as possible. Now, for some of us, it may not have worked. It may have failed. But overall, okay, and especially for me, these were stories that made me actually want to go back to read a lot of the Avengers books that I hadn't gotten around to. Like one of the biggest Avengers stories, and I remember, guys, we would chastise each other too. Like you never read Korvac? It's like, how could you not have read that story? Yeah. Okay, that was such a big story. But then, okay, where does it all fit in terms of this going on and this going on? Because there was a lot of stuff that happened. Okay, where does it come over here? And then nobody shied away. The two-gun kid, okay, even got shrift inside of this. So the fact that everything was embraced to try as best as possible to make this seamless history, on top of having this story, just really, I was just totally into it all the way up until the last issue. Not that I didn't like the last issue, just sorry it was over. I would love if something like this was. No, this is something they need. over at DC. They need like somebody like a not continuity police, but they need that sort of scholarship where these guys can come over and say, look, this is how it's working, because that's one of the reasons why these guys hate continuity, because their memories aren't up to the task of it. You know, you need like, that would be a great job for Roy Thomas. Just tell him, look, man, why don't you just have a book and just keep spooling out like, this is how it all fits in. Because these guys don't want to read any Bibles. They don't want to do the hard work or the heavy lifting. Kurt Busiek with Avengers Forever did the heavy lifting, and he pulled it off. This is the guy at the Olympics, and they're like, okay, he does the shrug over
all
here,
right,
and he gets it up over his head, and then booyakah, he throws it down.
Okay, he's said his opinion of it. I would say
you started off.
No, I'm saying your opinion just now. I'm not saying I'm not saying I didn't get a chance to talk. Obviously, I did. I'm just saying as far as my overview of the story was, it seemed like Kurt Busiek was doing his own sort of cross-time crisis with the Avengers. And if you remember Crisis, it started different the way than it ended, because it was characters plucked from
DC's Crisis. You mean,
yeah,
right?
DC's Crisis started where they plucked out different characters, and they had, for me, a good mix. And that's for 2 issues. And the next thing you know, it's just whoever shows up in Crisis. Whereas Kurt Busiek is deciding, let me do that. And that's something you can find in his writing, where he sort of pulls from a lot of stories like Kree Skull War, Crisis, and other stories start popping up. So when you go through, and then like there is some stuff which connects to, I think, in the Burns run, Immortus is wiping out different timelines, the divergence of the time theory, which is used, and it was cool to see that aspect. We just it didn't necessarily connect to what Roy Thomas did afterwards. But the story is going okay. For me, I'm gonna, when this comes out, I'm gonna show you my issues with the story, whereas the paneling, some of the panels, the action is going one way, and then the next panel, the action is going another way. It's hard if you're not a comic,
Right.
It doesn't always flow where you should, where it draws your eye to the next panel.
Yeah, so, I mean, with the rule, and I didn't realize how many people don't know how to read a comic book, and that's a turnoff to them. I mean, it's still Western. You can read it the Western way. It's going to be left to right, top to bottom. But you can really throw people when you have, okay, you got heroes running off this panel, and you're like, well, shouldn't I be following them this way to find out what's going on? And then you do this over here. But
the art is amazing, but that's what I started to notice. And when he got to Superman, that's not an issue at all. He's solid.
But that was much more, that was much, to be honest, in comparison, that was much more conventional, as opposed to what he was trying to, and what they needed to pull off with Avengers Forever.
So
I got to make certain I don't forget about Rick Jones, but go ahead.
Okay. So that's the other thing, that Rick Jones wasn't necessarily every man having this power. For me, that's where he does sort of like ordinary talk about that, but then he cures his problem by issue 4. But then when you get, so I'm still going with the story. I'm staying with it, and 5 has a nice dramatic thing with Immortus and the 50s Avengers. Like they're from the 50s, right?
Right.
There's this nice moment, and it's real dramatic and powerful, and it connects to why we don't know why these guys are here. Yeah. And then 6 through 9 are the characters just wading through continuity. And it's just like, it's continuity after continuity from everyone. From Immortus is now working for these 3 time guys, and it's just like, oh, it's great having this connecting these stories which have been completely forgotten, but it sort of lessened him. But it's just like any sort of, like the same thing happened with JLA Avengers. This issue 3, the characters just run into continuity, and then we had to see, and it just bogs down the story. So that's 3 issues. And then they have, we argued about it before with the Human Torch and Vision. I'm not sure we needed to see this part in the story besides saying, I'm having Immortus lie about this stuff, and I'm having Immortus lie about this other stuff. And then Kang's issue 9 is like, Kang has his own thing where I'm listening, I lied about this stuff, and then the cross-time, then I just killed the cross-time Kangs. And it's like, wait, what? Like, you're just throwing out stuff he's at the top of the writing game, so he's like, you know what, I'm the guy. So I'm Xing out all the stuff I don't like. I'm Xing out, like, Roger Stern, you're there. You created the cross-time Kangs. And then Walt Simonson made them into like an infinite number, and they're like, no, I just killed those guys. It's like, are you kidding? But anyway.
Well, no, he's thinking he's doing everybody a favor. He's like, I'm going to clean this all up, I'm going to clean.
But it wasn't.
with I mean, because that is almost like some of the same issue that DC had, where they wanted to do Crisis, even though this was a self-contained story that just affects the Avengers. But you're right. You get the first couple issues, and if they had been able to keep that.
Yeah.
For all, I mean, probably would have been 12 issues in that case. But if they had been able to keep that, I think you would have had a stronger story, because it does lose cohesion at a certain thing. And then when does it come back again? When you have Pariah and he assembles, like, I get Superman, I'm going to get Captain Marvel, I'm going to get these guys. Yeah. Okay, so now we have some players that we can actually focus on, and I'm going to set you guys over to the task.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, because they're there, and then it becomes more about those guys instead of the people that were picked by the Monitor to fight. So in this, when it gets to the end, where then it's like a total, Carlos Pacheco or even Kurt Busiek moment where they're fighting these, because the Destiny Power, the Destiny Force?
Right.
Destiny Force have sort of turned humanity in the future as into bad guys. So the Avengers had to fight where humanity would come, which is like almost like a mirror of the Avengers. They have all different things, armies that are like the Avengers, but then they become the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I say, you guys want to throw too much stuff into this. You guys, but I mean.
That's like the anachronism of trying to have a 1950s Avengers. You can't have a 1950s Avengers because there are no Avengers until the 60s, at least by comic book years. And then, then because, you're taking that whole Avengers Forever thing as literal, as opposed to being, figurative and symbolic. Like, the Avengers line is supposed to be once an Avenger, always an Avenger. That's how the Hulk could keep coming and getting back on the team, and then say the hell with you guys and jumping off. And of course, the Hulk was just like uncontrollable. But you look at that point right over there with the 1950s Avengers, and then you want to say it extends all the way over to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And he's like, well, no, because the Guardians of the Guardians, whatever ties they have to the Avengers are fine, and it's usually through. It was through Cap and the Shield somehow. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Well, the Guardians didn't. That's something later that they gave Vance Astro Captain America's Shield. But if you look at it, the Guardians had their own story.
Yeah. And
Marvel in the '70s was, once your story got canceled, then your story would dovetail into that writer's other story. So same with Nova, his stories dovetailed into the Fantastic Four, and the Guardians of the Galaxy started showing up in the Avengers until, I think it's 181, where there's Guy Ritchie's like, too many Avengers, and then they're gone.
Right, but they were there for the beatdown with Korvac, weren't they?
Yeah. So it's like that's. I mean,
that was a really big team. Yeah, that was a really big team. That's why Korvac needed to beat some. Yeah. Some of these guys needed to say, I gotta. I'm done. I need to come out.
They were supposed to leave. They're not supposed to stay with the Avengers, and they were with them, I guess.
But that's one of the things
20 issues.
That's one of these things that leads to these continuity issues, because you have all these characters, you have to balance them. Everybody needs to do something. Okay, you can't just have the Vision on the couch reading the newspaper while everybody needs to do something. And then you get to Avengers Forever. It's like, okay, this is what was happening. This is why it was happening. This is what these guys are doing. This is how it doesn't really. And then you throw in, Immortus and Kang, and that is a criticism I make. When you get rid of all the Kangs, like, wait a minute, because the whole idea is like you can't really streamline continuity. Just keep what you were doing. Just try to explain it. The idea of them being infinite amount of Kangs, yes, this guy keeps coming back. He keeps coming back. So even if you erase it at this point, it's easily brought back, because Kang is always, he's always revisiting the present, trying to influence the future, and you never know exactly which one you're dealing with.
And then we have, obviously you have a story, and it has an interesting twist of what happens with Yellow Jacket, and then the big fight, and bringing all the, using.
And who does Yellow Jacket remind? If you had done it differently, who's the Avenger that would have been Yellow Jacket in this? Who does Yellow Jacket remind you of, the way that Busiek plays him out?
I'm not sure who you're thinking of, though.
Hawkeye.
Well, yeah, because he was already in the book. I was just like, wait, could it mean the Hawkeye? But then that's the thing, you have sort of the same. It's weird because it's like you bringing that one in, so you get the Hawkeye stuff, but then you have the science, and that's the
because Hawkeye's already matured to the point, like, okay, he's not going to do this, he's not going to do this anymore. But we want that, we want that Jack, that Jack arrogance that Hawkeye would come. We can definitely get that from Yellow Jacket, playing, and then of course I like you have the dichotomy of literally that. With Hank Pym, I didn't like that they did it, but I thought it worked for this series where you have Hank Pym. He's Ant-Man, he's Giant Man, he's Goliath, he's Yellow Jacket, and they tried to sum that all up. Well, you know, he was insecure and this, that, and the other. But to see,
no, he said that. Oh, then they remember the scene in there. He's like saying, "Hey, so then Immortus, he was messing with my head." Nope. You didn't. Like, why don't you get rid of that stuff? Why won't he get rid of that stuff?
I have no idea, but they tried to they really did him dirty, you know, going long term, you know, with that. But I did like the fact that, okay, you have him here as Giant Man, and then you have him over here as Yellow Jacket, so you can see the different aspects of where he was in time. I thought that was a good piece of writing, because could you imagine being with your 16-year-old self and yourself now, and you'd probably look at it like this, there were certain things you'd probably like, hey, I would like to be more like this guy, and at the other point, like, you know, what the hell is wrong with him? And this is still, this is still yourself. And then you have that mask, so they don't know, to a large extent of what's going on. Yes, Busiek, you could have just let
you could have cleaned that up.
No, I mean the whole thing with, the stuff they did with Hank Pym. And I mean, we know the behind-the-scenes stuff.
But Shooter disowned it. He said, "No, it wasn't my fault. The artist was in the what's the name? He's in the John Buscema
Well, it's
thing.
not even Shooter, because we know. Look, anytime
it was Shooter.
No, anytime you see what Shooter did was try to like rationalize it at some point, and ended up throwing him under the bus and doing it.
He did it
anytime
to
we,
him.
anytime we saw those sort of tweaks going on, what was it? It was usually Stan saying, "Okay, let's try to get
No,
this
you
guy."
the earlier one. Okay,
let's try to get this character more. Because we saw it with Iron Man. Iron Man comes out, it's gray. We don't really get the reaction we want. Okay, let's lighten it up. Okay, all right. So the gold is nice, but nobody likes the kilt. All right, so let's like break that up a bit. Okay, now we got this. It's working. Okay, fine. I'm gonna stay out of it in terms of the design.
Okay, I get what you're
Ant-Man wasn't working. Okay, let's try this. We'll make him big. He was small. Let's make him big. Okay, the Giant Man doesn't sound too good. Goliath. Okay, we'll push him there.
Goliath is a bad guy.
Yeah.
No, but Goliath worked for a while, and then it's like, then Roy Thomas is like, "Oh, I need something to happen," and we got this new cool outfit.
Yeah. And to be honest, Yellow Jacket should have worked. You had the outfit. Okay, you had you had the outfit, you had the fact that he could definitely do the size thing if he wanted. He had the simple powers. He had the, he had the like a little bit more swagger to him. That should have worked.
But you know why it didn't work? Because artists like Ant-Man. So Neil Adams came in and is like, "I'm doing the Avengers. We got the classic three. Why not bring in Ant-Man?"
Yeah.
And then Byrne and Perez did his own.
And then that one moment that they have dogged him with his entire existence.
That's where Shooter comes in.
Yeah.
Well, Shooter hinted in, like, because you're dealing with, he was having a breakdown, so he did that early, and that was a good story. And then the next issue, he's back up to speed.
Yeah.
Being, like, hey, what's the name? Ultron shoots him. It's like, no, I prepared myself so your powers don't, those powers don't work on me. And then later when he comes back, the evil Shooter. No, but the stories are a lot darker. And then he's almost like trading, like saying, looking at the X-Men and saying, I want to do a hero going bad. So then Hank Pym is sort of pushed that he has this arrogant thing, because all Marvel characters had some chauvinism and sort of react, except for the X-Men, because the X-Men they were same age as Jean, whereas Reed, Tony Stark, all of them had
like cocky / arrogant.
chauvin. They had some, but it's like comparable to the time of the '60s. So then he's like, no, Hank Pym still has it. So then he smacks her, and then he, later goes to jail. She's sort of, it's just a wacky story, but everyone is sort of saying continuity. We can't get rid of it.
No, you can get rid of that continuity. They don't want to hand wave that continuity because they're afraid of the flack that they'll get. Oh, you don't want to do this, and mind you, okay, it'd be very easy to get rid of that. But I did like the dichotomy and the play that you would have to have. I mean, even to the point of the size. The giant and the small guy, the one who's more rational, the one who's more cocky. The fact that they're getting on each other's nerves. And then they're like, hey, do you guys realize you're the same dude? Those sorts of things coming in. Thought were played well. The characterization overall, with Avengers Forever as well. I don't, to be honest, Cap as a disillusioned person doesn't work for me, and I understand that time period. That was a really short period overall. The biggest thing that came out of that was nothing, if I remember correctly.
Well, he changed his outfit, but he was still
Nomad.
Cap. He was still Cap.
Yeah.
He was still like 2 seconds later. He's like, F this, and the next thing he's like, he's a hero again. So. But I mean, for me,
the biggest thing for him is what he was. I can see Cap being disillusioned with the government, but not with the country.
Yeah.
Okay, especially since he fought in World War II and had to be privy to all this information. I just couldn't see him being disillusioned with the country because he was fighting for the country, not for the government. So that would have been a little bit, but again, it's still Cap. And I don't think a story like, I don't know of another Avenger that you could put in the place of Cap and have a story of this sort of size and this ambition actually work. So those are some fixtures I liked on it.
If you look at, the thing is that if you look at when Stan was writing the book, and
the Crooked Quartet stuff?
No, before that, when Stan was writing the book, the clear, because I mean he was the most popular character at the time was Thor. So even though they had different leaders and Cap was coming in and getting popular, Thor was sort of the guy. But then, you know, just like the way Shooter felt, people weren't connecting as much with Thor. Even though it was a successful book, they started moving more to Cap. Even though Cap was taken out of the book, I guess in like, what was it? Maybe around the 40, like the issue 40s or something.
Yeah,
like
everybody gets a break.
You know, so he's moved out of it. But then Cap for Kurt Busiek becomes the ultimate last man standing, which in the Shooter run showed that if someone punches another hero like Wonder Man into Cap, he's out of the fight.
Yep.
So remember that. Cap can have his moments, because he's had moments like there's one where Josica comes and they're trying to stop Thor from destroying Josica, and Thor throws a hammer and Cap jumps off a building, throws his hammer, and it's like, oh, well, maybe someone, and then Iron Man catches him and it's fine. But it's a spectacular Cap moment, but not making Cap the last man, because Cap was the last man standing in the Juggernaut mystical character fight. Like the Avengers all captured and Captain America walks up, like, it's Cap. You can't keep just saying he's the last man standing. I know, and he said it in Wizard. So that's the only issue. But Cap is solid in this book. He's disillusioned, but then he has this moment with Black Panther, which is solid. There's a couple more later. But then with the what's her name, Forever Crystal, it's like, Cap again? No, I'm too much for me.
And the problem with that, the problem is, if you do that in Avengers Forever and you let him be the last man standing, it's okay. But then a lot of these guys do the same thing. Oh, I want to do my Avengers Forever story with Cap being the last man standing. Or they feel the need to show how resilient Cap is. Like, no, Cap is great, okay? But the last man standing on the Avengers it should be Thor, if no one else, okay? That's your last man standing at the end of the day. Even when they did the, you'll pardon me for breaking out and bringing in yet another book. But even when they did the JLA Avengers crossover, okay, what I liked about it was that, okay, the big guys, the really big guns, even to the point of Superman, all they were trying to do was really just make this little bitty pinhole where some guy who was totally innocuous could get in. You can use Cap like that.
Yeah.
And I think it works, because you had Superman with Thor's hammer, with Captain America's shield, and then of course all the power. You think, okay, well that's it. Superman's just going to take everybody out, right? And he's like, no. Who's the guy who comes in there? It's the least guy that you ever would have looked for. It's cocky Hawkeye. I gotcha. And then that's pretty much the end of it. I think it works better. I liked it here, okay, because it was more akin to that. But Busiek was the writer on both of those, so I can understand how he goes with it. Then you'll get some nonsense where it'll be like the Infinity War and Captain America's challenging Thanos. And you're like, you're kidding me.
Yeah,
you're kidding me. Just smack him and be done with it.
That's the thing. That's where I think, it doesn't necessarily go that wrong in this one. I just feel that the middle book period of this book, just to bring it back to Avengers Forever, is too much continuity. And this is a thing of his writing where they run into explaining all this stuff. And it's like, yes, could have a flashback to say this is where this comes from, but it's just like, it's like 4 issues of that. And then when you get to the, when it ends, that's my last bit that I have. We've never had answered by Kurt Busiek, because he's done it twice. There's a story called, there's Avengers issue 200, right, where they get rid of, well, basically they're trying to get rid of Miss Marvel. They're trying to get Miss Marvel out the book. So they find a way. They say, you know what, she's going to get pregnant. It's going to be this mystical character. The mystical character is actually going to be someone she falls in love with and should be gone forever. That's the plan. For some reason, Kurt Busiek has hinted to that story twice. He had in this story, Immortus, dies and born back in 2 seconds, just like Marcus in Avengers 200.
So you want to see the baby?
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying, like, this is a story that is, there's no man's land as far as comic book goers. Chris Claremont, even though it's kind of it's not cool what he did to Miss Marvel in the story, but he blames it on the Avengers. So they're just like, no, Chris Claremont didn't. Chris Claremont has Rogue throw her off the Golden Gate Bridge, and people have forgotten that she's trying to kill Miss Marvel, and so she's lost her power. She's tabula rasa, that sort of thing. So it's like, but then he said, okay, this character actually, controlled her mind and made her go away. And Avengers, you should have saw that. You shouldn't just say, oh, she had this mysterious hysterical pregnancy. How does this happen? She just doesn't have a male suitor, and she leads to another dimension, a limbo. But that, plays to all that stuff. So then he did it again in the Kang Dynasty, where Marcus is an actual character, and he plays off of Marcus being attracted to Miss Marvel. And it's like, Kurt Busiek, do you like that story? Because we can't help you with it. Don't hint to Marcus at all. Like, he had millions of Marcuses. Marcus is not a character we should connect to. None of that. It should not have been in there. And I'm like saying, it doesn't destroy the story, but that's a question we have to ask you. Why is that in there?
Well, the other thing I like is that as expensive as it was, by the time you get to issue 12, it's over.
Did you buy that? Oh, you got to ship to you. Yeah. I couldn't stay. I left like around 4.
I loved. Look, we get to 12. It's over. It's not one of these things like today, where it's a storyline, it's well received, and then it lingers on, not for the rest of the year, for decades. We can't get rid of it. It's this story, and it's over. It was never. Oh, okay. We got to keep referring back to the events of Avengers Forever that happened. Nothing so significant happened in that story that it was going to be tantamount to the rest of these characters' existence. It was a fun romp from 1 through 12.
Oh,
when it was over, when it was over, it was over. It's not like Frank Miller's work on Daredevil, where Born Again has dogged that character for 30 years now. It's not just it was over. It's done. We can go to the next story.
We talked about Born Again. We're going to
segue again.
We're going to segue one time. I think it was Ann Nocenti did a solid run post that. Mm-hmm. I think the problem is when they brought it back.
Even she brought it back. It was still a part of her storyline.
She did, Daredevil was, Matt Murdock was a public defender. So they had a thing where he's back in law, the stories are running, you can do stories like that forever.
Yeah, but then he ends up leaving New York. He ends up going through the same.
That's the problem with a writer is like, when I'm writing the same that happened to Chris Claremont on X-Men, or Peter David on Hulk. You write a book long enough and you're saying, you know what, you're not saying to yourself in your head, I don't have any more stories. You're like, you know what, I should bring in the Inhumans, and then we'll have this indestructible character, and then they'll go Daredevil on this long road trip, and then you go to hell. It's like, no, you hint at hell, have him go to hell, end the story. You're done. But there's a lot of writers, you're still on a book, you feel the mojo flowing somewhere else, and you go somewhere else, which is something that is hard to do because you like a book and you don't decide.
The fan response to Nocenti on the book was good, or else she couldn't have done any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I don't think she could have, she could have accomplished that now because of what stuff that Marvel's doing. Mm-hmm. But the big thing is that, Frank Miller comes and he does Born Again and he reveals Daredevil's secret identity to the Kingpin. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. That has dogged the character. Even in Nocenti's run, it's still a fixture where the Kingpin is still after Daredevil because he knows who he is. Well, we still want to see, we have another story in there where Daredevil has to have this breaking down where he's attacked by all these guys. And then he's got to get, and then, we have to see him shuffled off again, and then he comes back. And by the time she brings him back and he's Daredevil again, she's off the book.
But he doesn't, the thing is that when in that story, he doesn't give, Typhoid Mary? He doesn't give Typhoid Mary the information that she needs to take out Daredevil. Basically, Mary's, schizophrenic personality is interacting with Matt Murdock and falls in love. So Daredevil, I don't like the aspect of Daredevil just falling for this crazy woman, even though I liked how John Romita Jr. drew her. But I think that she didn't play it where, the Kingpin was still playing chess with Matt Murdock,
right? Which
was interesting to me. I just think the story just went too far. I hear what you're saying because it lived. When you go to Bendis, who's the top guy, and then he's like, I'm doing it over and making it worse.
It's still doing it now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
they're still doing it now.
I
That's
get
one,
it. I get it, but
that's
you
one
know,
of these things
they
with
didn't have
continuity.
to.
We're like, look, you know,
They didn't have to.
some of the stuff has to just let you got to let go, or you got to do the hand wave and say, okay, we need to get away
Hand
from
wave,
this.
Hank Pym.
Avengers
Hand wave,
Forever.
Hank Pym.
Avengers Forever was 12 issues. Okay, 12 issues of some really good storytelling, and then by the time you get, it's done. We don't have to revisit it ever again. It was this moment in time, okay, and it was a time travel story, and it's done. It's over. All of these guys go back to fulfill all of the things that they needed to do in their respective time periods without this affecting it. So that's another big plus for me. This was something I could read and not have to say, oh, good grief, man. Like, that happened how many years ago? It's still going to be a part of the stories today. I'm not talking about the origin either. I'm talking about the fact that, okay, he slapped her, or she broke into the store and she was on drugs, and it just never goes away because these guys refuse to let it go. It was like a blip. But we still have to come over here, and we still have to keep coming over here. Avengers Forever was able to tell a cohesive, solid story, and you can enjoy it. That's one of these. I mean, if you're not this guy who wants to read all the issues of Avengers, you can read that, okay? And they do a good job of explaining things while you go along, and enjoy it, and then just put it down to the side, revisit it when you want, and never have to go back. Oh, I need to come back. No, okay? It was a good self-contained story with some of the better Avengers, Magnificent Seven, okay? They do their ride, okay? And then everybody rides off into the sunset back in the time where they're supposed to. Again, it's just not like the common stories that you would have today from Marvel. They're doing, they're all social justice, warrior stories now, which just tend to, be parallel. They just tend to be polarizing stories, because if you agree with them, fine, and if you don't, then you got to feel like a bad guy, and if you're neutral, you're just totally uncomfortable. But this was a time period when the storytelling was really high. Kurt Busiek was at top of his game, at least with the Avengers. It's a good story.
For me, first 5, good. 6 through 9, off the rails, too much continuity, too much retelling, not enough just stuff happening, and then it resolves. It does at least resolve. So I would take those 4 issues they need to be sort of taken out, and then you sort of do an 8-issue run without that middle period, because there's like they're running into the Vision. Like, look, I see the Vision thing. It's like they're literally running into continuity. That I can't. He does it too many times for me. So
fair criticism. 12 issues is not an easy format to do successfully. There are a whole bunch of 12 issues where you could take out a good 4 or 5, and you probably have a tighter story. Worked for me. Doesn't work over here.
Do we have to review it?
Do we have to give
it stars or something?
No. Since this one happened back in the past, okay, we're just gonna give this one one single shiny gold star because it was because it was back then, and because somebody requested it special. So hey, we hope you enjoyed the discussion on Avengers Forever. If you guys ever want to hear us talk about anything else, please let us know, because we're here to talk about just about anything you can imagine, but we keep it clean.
Except for Kree-Shire War. Do not ask us to read all those crazy issues.
Hey, I'm game.
It's too many issues.
You can check out our commentaries on the X-Men films. Those are coming soon.
All right, thank you, everyone.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, Spinner Rack. You saved me money.